The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Dulmin Samarasinghe and read by Chandima Virakon. Headlines. The proposal to impose emergency regulations passed by a majority of 81 votes in Parliament. Government says emergency regulations introduced for the protection and security of consumers. Another 2 unregistered sugar storage facilities sealed. Ayurveda department says it has cured more than 30,000 COVID patients. An accelerated program launched to repair ambulances that have been taken out of the service. MP Rishad Batudin and other suspects further remanded in connection with the death of the girl in domestic service. In news overseas, competing claims over anti-Taliban stronghold Panjshir. Sports, Spanish teenager Carlos Alcaraz becomes the youngest player in the Open era to reach the US Open men's last 8. Local stories in detail. The proposal to impose emergency regulations was passed by a majority of 81 votes in Parliament today. 132 votes were received in favour of the proposal, while 51 opposed the proposal. Samagi Jana Balavegaya, Tamil National Alliance and Janata Vimukti Peramuna voted against the proposal. Taking part in the debate, Minister Rohitha Abegunawardena said that the government's responsibility is to provide essential goods at a reasonable price to the public even amid difficulties. The good governance government has shown that emergency law is not needed to take revenge from the opponents. Therefore, the minister said emergency regulations will not be used to take revenge from anyone. He added it is more dangerous than a war if there is a shortage of food amid the pandemic. Minister Douglas Devananda said that even powerful countries are facing challenges due to the pandemic. Therefore, he said that government's program to control COVID should be supported without trying to get narrow political gains. Parliamentarian S.M. Marika said that introducing emergency regulations to control food is an obstacle to the tourism industry. He said that their party would stand up for the democratic rights of the people. Taking part in the debate, Minister Vasudeva Nanayakkara said it is suitable to use emergency regulations to defeat trade terrorism. MP Anurukumara Dissanayake said if consumer protection laws are not strong, they should be made stronger. He said that he opposes bringing in emergency laws under the pretext of protecting the public. State Minister Janaka Wakkumbura said that the government has provided a fair price to sugarcane farmers. Sugar factories will be set up at several areas and steps will be taken to increase local sugar production. He said that sugarcane has been cultivated newly in 10,000 acres. MP Professor Thisavitharana said that measures should be taken to increase food production. State Minister Vijitha Berugoda pointed out emergency regulations were brought to protect civilian life and to prevent unfair price increase of goods. MP Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka said that everyone should work together to control the pandemic without working on political party lines. Consumer Affairs Authority has sealed today 2 unregistered sugar storage facilities in Wattala. Preliminary investigations have found that there are about 35,000 metric tons of sugar at the storage facility. The owners have said the sugar stocks were submerged in floods. Meanwhile, investigations are also being conducted into another sugarcane storage facility in the area that has been registered. Consumer Affairs Authority has found 130,000 metric tons of sugar during the past few days. Ayurveda department says that more than 30,000 COVID patients have been cured by them. About 30,000 quarantine families have been prevented being infected with the virus. Western Province Ayurveda Department's Colombo District Monitoring Office, Dr. Pathum Manuratna said that a new treatment centre with all facilities has been built in Gampaha area. He said that all patients are treated according to Ayurveda methods and all necessary treatment, including oxygen, is given when required. The Ministry of Transport has launched an accelerated program to repair ambulances that have been taken out of service due to various reasons. As the first step, 10 ambulances of the Ministry of Health are scheduled to be repaired. They would be repaired at the Lakdiva Engineering Private Company affiliated to the Transport Ministry. Chairman of the company, Kushan Vegodapola, said that they have all facilities to do the repairs. The first stock of saline produced under the label of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation has been handed over to the State Minister, Professor Channa Jayasumana, by the Chairman of the Corporation, Dr. Utpala Indravansha. Production of saline locally commenced following an agreement between a private company at Pallekele Industrial Zone in Kandy and the State Pharmaceutical Corporation under the guidance of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The institution will produce saline needed by the country. The full requirement of government hospitals will be met first and the surplus of saline will be given to the private sector. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Moving on with the local stories. Presidential Task Force for Economic Revival and Poverty Elimination has requested those who are eligible to receive the 2,000 rupee allowance and has not received the allowance to make an appeal. Appeals can be handed over to district secretaries and divisional secretaries. The government provided the 2,000 rupee allowance for low-income recipients who lost their livelihood due to quarantine curfew. The task force said that granting of the allowance has been completed. The New Zealand High Commission in Colombo has received a wide range of messages from members of the public as well as community and religious organizations in Sri Lanka about last Friday's terrorist attack in Auckland. New Zealand High Commission in Colombo said those have been touching and they have been particularly grateful for messages of concern for the victims of the attack and solidarity with their families and communities. New Zealand is greatly enriched by its Sri Lankan community and many New Zealanders have happily made Sri Lanka their home too. Global security threats are complex and require international cooperation. Authorities in New Zealand and Sri Lanka are in touch with one another about the present case. The High Commission said New Zealand and Sri Lanka have enjoyed decades of cooperation, including security matters, that will continue in the period ahead. Parliamentarian Rishad Batiuddin, his wife and his father-in-law have been further remanded over the case of a teenage domestic worker who died of burn injuries while serving in Batiuddin household. They were ordered to be remanded until the 17th of September when the case was taken up today before Colombo Additional Magistrate Rajendra Jayasuriya. However, the magistrate ordered Batiuddin's brother-in-law Mohammed Ismat and Ponnaya Pandaram, the intermediary who had brought the girl to the Batiuddin residence, to be released on bail. It has been decided to conduct annual Asala Perahara Festival of Sabaragamu Mahasamandevalaya without the participation of the public. The decision has been taken following the discussion headed by Governor Tikiri Kobbakadua and Ratnapura District Secretary Malani Loku Potagama. The Dhamma sermon and almsgiving in connection with the Asala festival will take place tomorrow. The cup planting will be held on Wednesday. The Kumbal procession will be held from Wednesday to Friday. The procession will be held from 11th to 15th and the Mahaperahara will be conducted from 16th to the 20th. The water cutting ceremony will be held on the 21st of this month. To conclude the local news, the headlines again. The proposal to impose emergency regulations passed by a majority of 81 votes in Parliament. Government says emergency regulations introduced for the protection and security of consumers. Another 2 unregistered sugar storage facilities sealed. Ayurveda department says it has cured more than 30,000 COVID patients. An accelerated program launched to repair ambulances that have been taken out of the service. MP Rishad Batiuddin and other suspects further remanded in connection with the death of the girl in domestic service. That ends local news.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Vidya Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vidya Mahatmya.
On the main news story, 1,952 corona patients have fully recovered and left hospitals and treatment centres today. The epidemiology unit of the Health Ministry said that the number of patients recovered from the virus has increased to 386,509. 462,767 COVID patients have been found from the country. 66,118 are undergoing treatment at hospitals. 10,140 have died due to the illness. Meanwhile, more than 9,179,000 have received both vaccine doses. 12,729,000 have received one dose of the vaccine. COVID vaccination is taking place island-wide today. The first dose of the COVID vaccine was given at many places today to the age group between 20 and 29 years. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vidya Mahatmya.
Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
And now in Watch Light.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippines will lift the travel ban for all inbound travellers from 10 countries, including Sri Lanka, from today. Presidential spokesperson Roque said in a statement that the ban put in place in April, then expanded to more countries in July to prevent the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant of the coronavirus, will be lifted today. That ends Watch Light.
World News.
Moving on to the world news, the headlines. Competing claims over anti-Taliban stronghold Panjshir. A survey finds India's school closures are catastrophic for poor students. Tokyo 2020 head stresses significance of the Games. The Taliban claim they are in complete control of the Afghan province of Panjshir, the final pocket of territory which has remained outside their rule. There has been heavy fighting in the area north of the capital Kabul between the Taliban and resistance fighters. A Taliban spokesman on Monday declared victory for the Islamist group, but resistance fighters said they were still present in all strategic positions and continue to fight. The prolonged closure of schools in India has led to catastrophic consequences for the poor children, according to a recent survey. The survey found only 8% of the children sampled were studying online regularly and 37% were not studying at all. Primary and upper primary schools in India have been closed for 17 months to curb the spread of coronavirus. The head of the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics Organizing Committee has stressed that the Games brought people together. Tokyo 2020 President Hashimoto Seiko spoke at a media conference today. Hashimoto noted that before they opened, many people had objected to holding the Games, but she thinks many now recognize the significance and value of the Games, which use the power of sports to unify people in a world divided by the coronavirus pandemic. To end the world news, the headlines again. Competing claims over anti-Taliban stronghold Panjshir. A survey finds India's school closures are catastrophic for poor students. Tokyo 2020 head stresses significance of the Games. That ends the world news.
Development News is brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Moving on to development news. Work on several development projects in the Galle district has commenced. They are being implemented under the Vistas of Prosperity policy statement. The funds are being provided by the State Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Government Administration. Development projects at Niyagama, Nagoda, Velivitiya, Divithura, Tavalama and Neluva commenced yesterday. That ends the development news.
Development News was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Moving on to sports news, it's tennis and motorsports. In tennis, Spanish teenager Carlos Alcaraz continued his sensational US Open debut by coming from behind to beat German Peter Djokovic in 5 sets and reach his first Grand Slam quarterfinal. Alcaraz, 18, recovered from 2 sets to 1 down to win 5-7, 6-1, 5-7, 6-2, 6-0. The victory sees Alcaraz become the youngest player in the Open era to reach the US Open men's last 8. Canadian teenager Leylah Fernandez continued her remarkable US Open run as she beat 2016 champion Angelique Kerber to advance to the quarterfinals. On the eve of her 19th birthday, Fernandez backed up her win over Naomi Osaka with a 4-6, 7-6, 7-5, 6-2 victory over Germany's Kerber. She battled back from a 4-2 deficit in the second set to force a tie-break and barely let up from then on. And in motorsports, Red Bull's Max Verstappen took a dominant victory over Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton in the Dutch Grand Prix to retake the championship lead. Verstappen, cheered on by 65,000 enthusiastic home fans, led all the way from pole position, comfortably keeping a following Hamilton at bay. The Dutchman leads Hamilton by 3 points after his 7th win in 2021. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Anton, the local PVC company, made history by expanding its operations to Kenya by exporting locally produced products to the people of Africa. Anton steps foot in Kenya amidst a very challenging time for people and businesses worldwide. However, the great feedback from the partners and consumers alike has been quite commendable. That ends Business News.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
The central bank's monetary easing measures have released a 3 trillion rupees worth of stimulus into the broader economic since March 2020 through June 2021, with the objectives of alleviating the full impact of the pandemic on the economy. Although part of the stimulus program was rolled back on August 19th, the central bank said its various easing actions and microprudential measures put in place to ensure the markets remain adequately liquid and money supply is maintained at a healthy level have resulted in an estimated 2,736 billion rupees worth of direct benefits to the economy. That ends economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report.
And finally, on the weather report, the Met Department says showers or thundershowers will occur at times in Sabaragamu and central provinces. Several spells of showers will occur in western and northwestern provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the Uva province and in Batiklo and Ampara districts, particularly in the night. Fairly strong, gusty winds up to 50 km per hour can be expected in the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north-central and northwestern provinces, and in Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report. And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. The proposal to impose emergency regulations passed by a majority of 81 votes in Parliament. Government says emergency regulations introduced for the protection and security of consumers. Another 2 unregistered sugar storage facilities sealed. Ayurveda department says it has cured more than 30,000 COVID patients. An accelerated program launched to repair ambulances that have been taken out of service. MP Rishad Bhattiyadin and other suspects further remanded in connection with the death of the girl in domestic service. In news overseas, competing claims over anti-Taliban stronghold Panjshir. In sports news, Spanish teenager Carlos Alcaraz becomes the youngest player in the Open era to reach the US Open men's last 8. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.